Tonight we drift into the dim, briny glow of a city that never quite closes its eyes. The moon hangs above the Venetian lagoon like a dull coin, and you, yes, you, are about to become one of its forgotten guardians. Picture it, damp cobblestones glimmering like fish scales, the air thick with the perfume of salt and mildew, and the low hum of gondoliers grumbling to themselves about unpaid fares. It's beautiful, in a precarious, slightly unsanitary way. You probably won't survive this shift without getting at least one bootful of canal water. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your patrol begins under the long shadow of the Campanile di San Marco, where the city's bell tolls mark not just hours, but curfews, secret meetings, and the beginning of your watch. You trudge through alleys so narrow that your lantern flame bends in protest, the walls breathing out centuries of damp sighs. Venice in the Renaissance is no gentle watercolor. It's a restless clockwork of merchants, lovers, thieves, and nobles, all playing out their dramas on floating stone. By night, the city belongs to you, or at least that's what the captain told you when he handed you your badge and a second-hand lantern that smells faintly of sardines. The Serenissima, as Venice loves to call herself, takes pride in order, but you know better. The canals don't care about laws. They swallow evidence quietly. Every bridge, every crooked step seems to whisper that balance here is only an illusion, a trick of moonlight and reflection. And yet, despite the hazards, floods, fires, feuds, you walk. Because someone must. You pass under an archway draped with drying laundry that never dries. Somewhere nearby, a lute plays a lazy tune, its notes drifting through the fog like moths toward your light. There's laughter, young, carefree, probably drunk. You can't see them, but you can almost feel the sparkle of powdered wigs and cheap perfume. The night guards of Venice, known in your time as the custodian attorney, aren't meant to disturb revelry unless it gets violent or blasphemous. The Republic believes in moderation, even when it comes to sin. A black cat darts across your path. You pause. Superstition runs deeper than the canals here. Some guards claim cats are spies for witches who live among the fishermen's huts, brewing potions from algae and squid ink. Historians still argue whether such beliefs were serious or just convenient excuses to avoid lonely stretches of duty. Either way, you give the cat a nod of respect before moving on. No sense in testing fate on your first night. Farther down the calle, a splash echoes. Probably a gondolier emptying his bilge, but your mind leaps elsewhere, to thieves, smugglers, or worse, the legendary Omo Salvan, a wild man said to haunt the lagoon's edge. According to the tavern gossip, he appears to those who forget to say their prayers before crossing bridges. You make a mental note, say a few extra tonight. The city glows faintly gold where lanterns hang from iron hooks. Oil is expensive, so only main routes are lit. The side canals drown in velvet darkness. You realize, with an odd shiver, that every pool of light is an island of safety, and every shadow, a story waiting to happen. You check your watchman's badge again, a small copper disc engraved with the winged lion of St. Mark. The metal is warm from your hand. It feels like a promise, or maybe a warning. At the corner near Campo Santa Maria Formosa, a pair of late-night merchants argue over crates of dried figures. You approach, the wooden soles of your boots announcing you long before your words do. All's well, you call, the traditional reassurance of the watch. They nod nervously and make exaggerated shows of sealing their wares. Trade never sleeps here. Even at midnight, Venice hums with the low arithmetic of profit and risk. The merchants disperse, and you jot a small note in your ledger, routine, minor disturbance, no fines issued. The city's bureaucracy adores paper, perhaps more than justice itself. You pause beside a canal, your lantern reflecting in the black water. Somewhere, a fish jumps. The surface ripples, breaking the twin image of moon and flame. For a brief second, it looks as if two worlds have touched, the one above, clean and celestial, and the one below, murky and mortal. Maybe that's Venice's true genius, floating forever between them. As the hour nears midnight, you feel the weight of history pressing close. You're walking streets older than most kingdoms, through architecture that hums with secrets. Behind those shuttered windows lie masked nobles, sleeping apprentices, and foreign spies scribbling coded letters. You are the thin, flickering line between order and chaos, between the Republic's dreams and its nightmares. You stop beneath a balcony where vines creep over carved angels. A faint scent of roses and brine lingers in the air, Venice's signature perfume. You tilt your head up. Somewhere behind the curtains, someone whispers your name. Or maybe it's just the wind. The city often plays tricks on those who listen too closely. A faint ringing from the campanile reminds you that your patrol must circle back toward the docks. As you walk, your reflection ripples beside you like a ghostly partner, slightly out of step. You wonder how many watchmen before you have traced these same routes, night after night, their names now dissolved into the lagoon's hush. The shift feels endless already, yet strangely soothing. You've entered that quiet rhythm between sound and silence where the city almost breathes with you. Above, seagulls sleep on the roofs like folded scraps of parchment. Below, rats hold their own little banquets in the gutters. You smile. Let them feast, you mutter. They pay no taxes. And still, you walk, past bridges shaped like ribs, past chapels that smell of candle smoke and damp marble. A priest crosses your path, his robe brushing the cobblestones. He gives you a nod, eyes hidden in shadow. For a moment, you feel like part of something larger, a web of vigilance woven through centuries. When the bell tolls once more, the sound drifts over the lagoon like a benediction. You pause, lantern raised, and watch its light tremble across the water. The night is yours, for now. Tomorrow, the merchants will reclaim it, the lovers will forget it, and the council will pretend it never existed. But you'll remember this quiet sovereignty, this fragile piece held together by salt, wax, and faith. And as the tide sighs against the stones, you take another step forward, toward the next hour, the next alley, the next mystery waiting in the dark. You trudge along the mist-slick promenade, the bells of midnight still humming behind your ribs like a heartbeat. Venice feels different after that toll, quieter, but not empty. The canals breathe. The water gurgles against barnacled stones. Somewhere out of sight, a rope creaks as a moored gondola rocks gently, like a cradle for ghosts. You've heard stories of those who've stepped too close to the edge, lost their footing, and disappeared without a ripple. The lagoon has a way of keeping its secrets. The captain told you earlier, in that weary tone old watchmen use when breaking in a rookie, that the Serenissimi Custodian Attorney, the most serene night guards, are older than most of the city's churches. Their creation was no grand gesture, no heroic decree. They began as a patchwork of volunteers and veterans who, centuries ago, decided someone should stop fires and footpaths before the Doge lost too many taxpayers. Over time, the Republic formalized them, gave them a modest wage, a badge, and just enough authority to make enemies but not enough to make history. That's how it always works here. Venice floats not only on water, but on compromise. You pass a small shrine tucked into a wall, St. Nicholas, protector of sailors and watchmen. Someone's left a crust of bread there, slightly moldy but heartfelt. You nod your thanks. Bread's bread, after all, and at this hour, every crumb feels like a blessing. The air tastes of brine and smoke. The smell of olive oil drifting from an unseen tavern makes your stomach growl. You remember the captain's words again: never eat on duty unless you can fight on a full stomach. You're not sure whether he was joking. You hope he was. Venice's night guards weren't glamorous, but they were necessary. Fires were the city's greatest terror. One stray spark could send whole neighborhoods up like paper lanterns. Burglary was common, too, though the thieves here had style. They were known to break into homes not for gold, but for silk or perfume, trading them later on the black markets of Murano or Chioggia. You tighten your grip on your lantern, half expecting one to appear out of the fog, bow politely, and ask you to look the other way. Historians still argue whether the custodi were truly effective or merely symbolic, a kind of living reassurance for citizens who wanted to believe someone was watching over their dreams. Some accounts praise them as disciplined professionals who kept the peace with quiet efficiency. Others depict them as half-drunk extortionists, more interested in bribes than justice. Like most things in Venice, the truth probably lies somewhere between the glitter and the grime. A low voice calls out, "Guardia." You turn, squinting through the mist. An elderly man waves from a balcony. His candle flickers beside a hanging cage, where a parrot blinks indignantly. "Theft," he shouts. "They've stolen my figs again." You step closer, raising your light. "When did you last see them?" you ask. The man frowns, thinking. "Before supper." He scratches his chin. "Or during. I forget." The parrot squawks, "Thief. Thief." You sigh. The night guard's logbooks were full of such incidents: lost laundry, missing fruit, misplaced dignity. Still, you jot a note. One can't disappoint bureaucracy. The Republic might forgive murder faster than it forgives a missing report. As you continue down the lane, you catch the faint ring of oars. A gondola glides past, its prow lantern dimmed, its passenger hidden beneath a cloak. You pause to watch it vanish beneath a low bridge. Officially, curfew applies after midnight, but exceptions are negotiable. Especially if one's pockets are deep enough. The Republic's moral code was flexible, like its bridges, able to bear weight so long as it's distributed carefully. At the corner near Campo San Leo, a beggar crouches beside a shuttered apothecary. You recognize her, a woman who sells luck charms by day, dried seahorses, coral beads, and little glass amulets shaped like eyes. Tonight, her hands are bare. "Watchmen," she rasps, "the fog's thicker than usual. They say the lagoon's spirits walk when it's this heavy." You smile faintly. "Tell them to file a permit first." She cackles, revealing gums like dark pearls. You jest, but something's afoot. The water feels wrong. You want to laugh, but truthfully, the water does feel different tonight. Sluggish, almost oily, as if the lagoon itself were brooding. You shake it off. Venice is full of strange sensations. Most are just humidity and imagination conspiring against reason. A church bell somewhere deep in Castello strikes once. The sound echoes too long, as if caught in a loop. You keep walking, boots slapping softly, mind replaying that word, forgotten. How many generations of guards have walked this same route? Hundreds? Thousands? And how many of their names are known now? Probably none. You wonder if one day someone will stumble across your lantern at the bottom of a canal and think it a relic of myth. You turn a corner and nearly collide with another watchman. His lantern swings wildly, throwing monstrous shadows across the brick. "Easy there," he grumbles. You recognize him, Johnny, one of the veterans. His beard looks like it's been borrowed from a barnacle. "Long night?" you ask. He snorts. "Every night's long when the Doge's asleep. There's talk of cutting our pay again." You nod sympathetically. The Republic's priorities lie with merchants and mercenaries, not with the men who keep its streets dry and bodies unstabbed. Still, The city depends on its watchmen, whether it admits it or not. Keep an eye out near the Riva degli Schiavoni, Johnny mutters. Smugglers moving pepper again. They say one lot came in disguised as relic traders. You chuckle. So, Saint Peppercorn of Alexandria. He grins, showing 2 teeth and a lifetime of cynicism. Something like that. You part ways, his footsteps fading into the fog. Your own echo lingers behind you, double-timed, like a ghost marching in step. By now, the city feels half awake, half dreaming. Cats watch from windowsills. A breeze carries laughter from somewhere unseen. The smell of tar and wet rope drifts in from the docks. You pause and look back the way you came. The lamplight glows faintly on the canal surface, tiny halos dissolving into ripples. That's when you realize what the captain meant when he called the night watchmen the lungs of Venice. You don't just protect the city, you breathe with it. Every alley you pass fills with a little sigh of safety. Every shadow you leave behind exhales the night a bit calmer. You are rhythm, routine, heartbeat. Invisible but essential. Forgotten, perhaps, but never truly gone. A seagull cries out, startled awake. The sound slices through the mist like torn paper. You look up at the faint shimmer of stars above the rooftops. Even here, amid decay and darkness, the city remains luminous, defiant, like a candle that refuses to die. Your lantern wavers. Somewhere, another watchman answers with his own light, flickering once across the water in quiet acknowledgement. It feels like a salute, an oath that the night, for all its danger, is still yours to guard. You turn down a narrow calle that smells of damp plaster and centuries of gossip. The mist thickens, clinging to your coat like an affectionate ghost. Overhead, laundry lines stretch between windows, sagging with forgotten garments that flutter faintly in the sea breeze. One of them, a mask, maybe left behind from carnival, swings by a string, watching you with empty eyes. It's strange, you think, how masks never quite disappear in Venice. Even when carnival ends, the city never takes them off completely. By day, they are hidden behind courtesy and politics. By night, they dangle in alleys like silent witnesses. You step into a small square, a campiello, lit by a single oil lamp that trembles in the fog. A shadow glides along the wall, and you instinctively reach for your cudgel. But it's only a pair of lovers, masks half drawn, whispering the kind of words that get people fined or promoted depending on who overhears. You clear your throat, just enough to remind them that decency technically still exists. They scatter like pigeons. You sigh. The custodian attorney were, among other things, Venice's reluctant guardians of morality. During the Renaissance, the Republic prided itself on moderation, neither Rome's strict piety nor Florence's moral crusades. Still, the government issued countless edicts about public conduct. Excessive drinking? Fine. Loud singing? Fine. Improper touching in public? Also fine. Literally. The penalties were meant more to refill city coffers than cleanse souls. Historians still argue whether the night guards truly enforced those codes or merely performed them. Some think the patrols were stagecraft, a kind of nocturnal theater that reassured citizens the city was under control. Others believe the custodi had genuine authority, their reports feeding into the labyrinth of councils and magistrates that govern Venetian life. Either way, your presence is both symbol and warning. Behave, or at least pretend to. You pass beneath a wooden balcony where a lantern burns low. The flame throws the shadow of a mask onto the wall. Long nose, hollow eyes, the border style worn by nobles during carnival. It's unsettling how human it looks, like a frozen scream halfway through laughter. Venice has perfected that expression, the elegant mask hiding unease. A sudden rustle draws your attention. You turn sharply, lantern raised. A man stumbles from the shadows, clutching his sleeve. His mask dangles from one ear, his breath sour with wine. I was robbed, he slurs. 3 men in cloaks took my purse. You glance at his attire, embroidered cuffs, a gold chain. A merchant, by the look of him, and more likely fleeced at dice than mugged. Still, you write it down in your log, half amused, half sympathetic. We'll look into it, you say. The phrase tastes bureaucratic but necessary. He leans closer, whispering conspiratorially. They wore masks. Said they were gaudy. That stings a little. Impersonating a watchman is one of the oldest tricks in Venice. Anyone with a lantern and confidence can play law for an evening. The Republic once tried issuing special brass whistles to authenticate real guards, but thieves simply stole those too. You shake your head. Go home before you lose your trousers as well. He wobbles off toward the Grand Canal, muttering curses at his reflection. The Campiello empties again. You stand alone, listening to the faint splash of oars. The air hums with that peculiar tension Venice has after midnight, neither safe nor dangerous, just watchful. You take a slow breath. Salt. Wax. Smoke. Beneath it all, something sweeter, faint as memory, perhaps the perfume of the lovers you startled earlier, lingering like regret. You continue on, crossing a small bridge slick with algae. Below, the water reflects scattered lights like spilled coins. You think about the masks again. During Carnival, they allowed people to move between classes, between identities. For one season, a beggar could dance with a noble, a monk could flirt, a woman could speak freely without risking scandal. The masks made everyone anonymous, and, in their own way, equal. But the anonymity outlived the festival. Even when the masks came off, the habit of hiding stayed. Night guards were told to report suspicious behavior, yet almost every Venetian was suspicious by nature. Deals were struck in whispers, alliances sealed in shadows. You could never tell whether a masked figure was a criminal, a senator, or both. You stop at a corner where the walls converge like folded paper. Someone has pasted a handbill there, its ink running from the damp. By order of the 10, unauthorized gatherings after curfew are prohibited. You run your fingers over the paper. The Council of 10, Venice's secretive inner court, watched everything and everyone. Even you. Perhaps especially you. A gust snuffs your lantern for a moment. Darkness folds around you like wet cloth. You fumble with your striker, muttering. When the flame finally returns, it seems smaller, feebler, as if frightened too. You chuckle softly. Easy, little one. We're both pretending to be brave. You think of how many crimes have occurred behind masks in this city. Assassins blending into masquerades, spies slipping through banquets, even monks disguising themselves for midnight escapades. The Republic outlawed certain types of masks at specific hours, but enforcement was impossible. Venice lived by masks, traded through them, governed behind them. You suspect that even the Doge's gilded visor, the one worn during ceremonies, was just another reminder. Rule here is always half theater. Near Campo San Polo, you hear laughter, high, musical, but sharp-edged. A group of masked revelers lurch down an alley, singing a bawdy tune about a nun, a fishmonger, and an unfortunate eel. They stop when they see your lantern, freezing like actors caught out of character. One of them, a man with a golden mask, bows extravagantly. Good evening, Signor Guardia. Are we disturbing the sanctity of the night? Only its pitch, you reply dryly. He laughs, then flips a coin into the air. It lands at your feet, glinting faintly. For your silence, he says. You kick it back gently. Keep your coin. I prefer my job. Ah, he says, tilting his head. Then you're in the wrong city. They vanish into the fog, still laughing. You shake your head, but a smile tugs at your mouth. He's not wrong. By now the fog has turned silver under the moon. The canals mirror it so perfectly that the city seems to float between two skies, one above, one below. You pause on a bridge and lean against the railing, letting the lantern's light ripple in the water. Somewhere, bells chime 1:30. You think of the countless faces behind those masks, the merchants scheming, lovers hiding, politicians whispering confessions to saints by day and to courtesans by night. The night guards walk among them all, unseen but seeing everything. You can't decide which is lonelier, to hide your face or to keep it uncovered while everyone else hides theirs. The fog curls closer, blurring your reflection until it becomes something unrecognizable, another masked figure staring back. For a brief, eerie moment, you don't know which one of you is real. Then, with a deep breath, you move on. There's always another alley to cross, another secret to overhear, another mask waiting in the dark. The mist begins to thin as you approach the Grand Canal, where moonlight drips like quicksilver down the ripples. The hour sits somewhere between 1 and 2, too late for merchants, too early for monks, and exactly right for gossip. A gondolier hums softly nearby, his oar rising and falling with rhythmic grace. You call out a quiet greeting. He grunts in reply, the Venetian version of a smile. The gondoliers are the city's veins, carrying everything, goods, rumors, secrets, through the watery labyrinth. You soon learn that if you want to know anything in Venice, you ask a man with an oar. Their tongues row faster than their boats. You crouch near the edge of the canal, where the stone steps disappear into black water slick with oil. The scent is rich, salt, pitch, old wine. Behind you, the wooden facades of merchant houses lean over the canal like gossiping old women, their windows cracked open to catch bits of the night. A gondola glides closer, the prow carved into the familiar pharaoh shape, 6 prongs for the sestieri of Venice, 1 curved for the doge's cap. The man at the stern wears a wide hat and a grin that could mean anything. "Watchman," he calls. "You out late?" "So are you," you answer. He shrugs. "My passengers prefer the moon to the sun. Fewer witnesses that way." "Merchants? Lovers? Which kind of commerce? I leave you to decide." You laugh quietly. Gondoliers see everything, especially the things they are paid not to mention. One even claimed to have ferried a masked noblewoman who turned out to be a foreign spy. Historians still argue whether the tale was true or just one of those bar stories that grows an extra villain with every retelling. As the gondola drifts past, the water licks against your boots. You think of how the city depends entirely on this network of silent oarsmen. They carry letters between lovers, bodies between jails and graves, gossip between palaces. The Doge's councils may think they govern Venice, but really, it's these men who keep it breathing. A splash nearby interrupts your thought, a small boat bumping clumsily against a piling. 2 figures scramble aboard, whispering furiously. You step behind a column, listening. "Told you not to come this way," one hisses. "The guard's shift changes soon," the other replies. "We'll be clear." You ease your lantern higher. The light catches a sack on the deck, small, tightly tied, and suspiciously heavy. Smugglers. Pepper, most likely. Spice worth its weight in gold, taxed to oblivion by the Republic. You consider intervening, but they are already rowing off, quick and practiced. You'd need 3 men to chase them, and tonight you're only 1. You jot down the location and time for tomorrow's report. Justice in Venice often travels slower than its criminals. You move along the embankment, the echo of their oars still pulsing in your ears. Somewhere behind you, a door creaks open. A woman leans from a second-story window, hair unbound, voice soft as tidewater. Guardia, she calls. What's the hour? 1:30, you say. She sighs dreamily. Then I've still time to wait. For what? For someone who said he'd return by midnight. You raise an eyebrow. You're optimistic. She smiles faintly, a shadow behind gauze curtains. In this city, optimism's cheaper than oil. Then she disappears, shutters closing with a sigh. You stand there a moment longer, wondering whether her lover's boat sank or whether he simply changed destinations. Venice is full of such half-stories, rumors that never finish their sentences. The gondoliers keep them alive, passing them along the canals like floating letters. One tale you've heard from 3 different mouths: a nobleman who vanished during Carnival, last seen boarding a gondola that never docked. Some say he ran off with a courtesan. Others claim he angered the Council of 10. A few insist his boat was swallowed by fog that never lifted. You don't know which version is true, but each feels right in its own way. Venice, after all, thrives on ambiguity. You pause at a small dock where the planks groan under your weight. A lantern swings overhead, throwing light across the glossy curve of another gondola. Its owner, an older man with shoulders like rope knots, sits smoking something that smells faintly of cloves. Long night? He asks. They all are, you reply. He chuckles. At least you're paid to walk. I row until my arms beg for mercy. You look at the water curling beneath his boat. Ever see anything strange out here? He squints at the reflection of the moon. Once, he says slowly. A mask floating by itself, still dry. Not a drop on it. You tilt your head. You fished it out. Of course not, he scoffs. I'm Venetian, not foolish. You grin. And what do you think it meant? He blows out a long stream of smoke. That sometimes, the lagoon doesn't want to give back what it takes. His words settle into you like silt. You thank him and move on, footsteps echoing against the hollow wood of the pier. The city feels quieter now, as if listening to its own heartbeat. A few minutes later, you reach a narrow crossing, one of those stone bridges so old it seems to sag under the memory of footsteps. There, you overhear 2 gondoliers arguing softly in dialect too quick for outsiders. You catch fragments: her name, the jewels, the nun. Whatever they are discussing, it's juicy. You clear your throat, and both men stiffen. Evening, you say casually. Evening, one replies, forcing a grin. Just talking about fish. You glance at their empty nets. Must be very valuable fish. They exchange a look. Extremely. You let them squirm a bit before moving on. The trick to keeping order in Venice isn't confrontation, it's suggestion. Let them think you might return, and they'll behave for a week. As you turn toward the quieter canals, you can still hear their voices fade behind you. It's comforting, in a way, proof that the city lives, even at this hour. Venice has always been a place where words travel faster than truth. The moon dips lower, glancing off the water like molten glass. You pause on the bridge, breathing in the smell of damp stone and stale tobacco. The night's rhythm has settled. Footstep, ripple, whisper. You feel it looping endlessly, like oars through water. And for a fleeting second, as you watch another gondola slip silently through the mist, you envy the gondoliers, their freedom to glide, their anonymity, their easy laughter echoing over the canals. You guard the city, but they move within it, as fluid and uncatchable as the tide. Still, someone has to stay on land to listen. Someone has to gather their gossip, their confessions, their jokes, and turn them into reports that will vanish into dusty archives. You smile. Maybe centuries from now, someone will find your scribbles and call them primary sources. A gull screeches overhead, startled by nothing. You look up, startled too, then laugh softly to yourself. Relax, you murmur. It's only Venice talking in its sleep. You pause beneath an overhanging arcade, lantern raised, its light trembling over the slick bricks. The air smells of rain that hasn't arrived yet. Somewhere in the darkness, something drips steadily, water from a leaky gutter or blood from a chicken just butchered for tomorrow's market. Venice, as always, refuses to clarify. Your hand brushes the side of your satchel, feeling the familiar weight of your tools. Cudgel, whistle, oil flask, a stub of chalk, and your city-issued badge. The tools of the Venetian night watchman are humble, but each tells a story of centuries of adaptation and improvisation. You pull out the cudgel first. Polished by years of anxious palms, it's short, sturdy, and reliable, perfect for convincing drunkards and stray dogs alike that bedtime has come. The handle bears a notch from some long-forgotten scuffle, your predecessor's souvenir, perhaps. Next, the whistle, carved from bone. You lift it to your lips but don't blow. The sound would shatter the stillness and alert every thief within 3 canals. The captain once said, "A good guard never uses his whistle unless things are already lost." You still don't know if he meant the fight or the city. Then comes your lantern, your true weapon. Its brass frame gleams faintly despite the soot, its glass shield etched with tiny scratches from nights spent brushing stone walls. You twist the top to feed the flame, watching it bloom from orange to gold. The light trembles as if eager for mischief. You whisper, "Steady now," and it obeys. Historians still argue whether these patrol lanterns were standardized by the Republic or cobbled together by individual guards. Some claim each district maintained its own style, San Polo with square frames, Castello preferring domes, and Dorsoduro favoring iron rather than brass. Whatever the truth, no 2 lanterns were exactly alike, much like the men who carried them. You check your chalk piece, a vital item for marking trouble. A quick X on a wall meant watch this house, a spiral meant safe to pass, a triangle meant fire nearby. Half the time, those marks confused more than they helped, but at least they made the watchman look busy. Your favorite item, though, isn't official, a small talisman made of sea glass and thread, tied to your belt. Johnny, the grizzled veteran, gave it to you your first week. For luck, he'd said, though you suspect it was really for irony. Venetian guards were famously unlucky. Fires, floods, collapsing bridges, or sudden summons to the Doge's courts, all could end a career faster than a thief's blade. You sling your lantern higher and set off again. The stone underfoot gleams like wet parchment, every puddle a tiny mirror. You feel the city watching you back. The night watchmen weren't just keepers of order. They were, in a sense, the Republic's early alarm system. If someone shouted "Fuoco," fire, the guards were expected to rouse citizens, form bucket lines, and coordinate with the pompieri crews who handled the pumps. Every man, woman, and child in Venice knew that when the bell of San Marco rang irregularly, flames were already licking the wooden eaves. You reach a small bridge and lean against its cool parapet. Somewhere behind you, you hear faint laughter, followed by the creak of shutters. The sound of domestic life, proof that, for now, the city sleeps in safety. You allow yourself a small smile. A rustle at your feet draws your eye downward. A rat, bold and glossy, stares up at you with black eyes reflecting your lantern's flame. "Out patrolling too, are you?" you murmur. It sniffs disdainfully and scurries off toward a drain, tail vanishing like a question mark. You continue through a row of warehouses near the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, where merchants from the north store goods, spices, glassware, fabrics. The doors are sealed with iron bolts heavy enough to crush toes. You give one a perfunctory tug anyway, more for habit than suspicion. Inside, you can smell the faint sweetness of saffron mingling with tar. That's when you hear it, a faint metallic clink from deeper inside. You freeze, heart thumping. Another. Then silence. You edge closer, lantern dimmed with your thumb. The sound comes again, slow, deliberate, unmistakably human. You step inside, careful not to trip over the uneven floorboards. The light catches movement, a figure crouched near a crate, back turned. Stop, you bark, voice echoing. The figure bolts, knocking over a stack of barrels. You lunge forward, your cudgel thudding against the floorboards as you give chase. The thief darts through the far door, but in his panic, he forgets the step and stumbles, splashing knee-deep into the canal. You follow, lantern swinging wildly, just in time to see him flounder toward the far bank. "Throw me your hand," you call. "Throw me your purse," he shouts back, then disappears into the fog. You stand there, panting, drenched to the knees. After a moment, you start laughing. Not bitterly, just the resigned laughter of someone who knows Venice has once again outsmarted him. You fish a damp scrap of fabric from the water, part of the thief's sleeve, and pocket it. Maybe it'll serve as evidence. Maybe as a souvenir. Back at the warehouse, you strike a mark on the wall with your chalk, a triangle. Fire risk now secondary to burglary risk. The symbol will tell tomorrow's patrol to keep watch. You jot a note in your ledger, attempted theft. Escaped. Possibly local. Then you add, with mild amusement, good swimmer. By the time you return to the street, the sky has paled slightly, a gray line brushing the horizon. Not dawn yet, just the faint promise of it. You lean against the wall and let out a long breath. It strikes you how much of your life depends on objects most citizens never notice. The scrape of chalk, the glint of brass, the hiss of oil catching wick. These tools are your companions, your confidants. They don't lie, don't gossip, don't ask for bribes. In a city obsessed with masks and mirrors, that's a rare comfort. Historians, you imagine, will debate endlessly about Venice's technological genius, its shipyards, its glassworks, its printing presses. But you suspect the truest measure of its survival lies in smaller things. A well-oiled lantern, a sturdy cudgel, a line of chalk on a wall. You adjust the talisman on your belt and grin. Still in one piece, you whisper to yourself. The lantern flickers, as if agreeing. Ahead, the bells begin to toll too. Another hour to record, another night to outlast. You turn back toward the alleys, your tools clinking softly like the instruments of an orchestra that only ever plays one tune, vigilance. And as you step once more into the breathing dark, you think, perhaps for the first time, that these little things you carry are not merely tools, but extensions of yourself. You, too, are part of Venice's machinery, one small, shining cog keeping the whole miraculous, creaking city afloat. The first thing that hits you is the smell, sharp, acrid, unmistakable. Smoke. Not from a cook fire or a candle, but the hungry kind that eats timber and silk indiscriminately. You break into a jog, lantern swinging like a comet, your shadow lurching over the walls. Venice has always feared fire more than thieves, and for good reason. A single spark could turn this floating city into an inferno. You round a corner into a small campiello and find the source, a narrow workshop, its shutters glowing orange. The cobbler's place, you realize, run by a quiet man who never remembers your name but always nods respectfully. A lick of flame darts from the window, tasting the air. You raise your whistle and give a sharp blast. The sound pierces the night, setting off a chain reaction. Doors slam open, shouts echo, dogs bark in alarm. The city wakes instantly, as if Venice itself can feel pain. Within moments, a bucket line forms from the nearest well. Women in nightgowns, boys in bare feet, even a priest from the next parish joins in, sleeves rolled high. You fall into rhythm, dip, pass, throw. Water splashes your boots and steams as it hits the walls. Venice's architecture, beautiful as it is a pyromaniac's dream. Wooden beams lurk behind stone facades, oil paints dry beside open flames, and every room hides at least one candle that refuses to die quietly. The Republic knew this well. Laws had long forbidden open hearths in certain districts and required all chimneys to be lined with terracotta. But laws, like curfews, tend to wilt in the heat of habit. Historians still argue whether the famous Magistrato al Fuoco, the fire magistrate's office, was effective or merely ceremonial. Some records suggest they issued strict inspections. Others imply they mostly inspected the inspectors' pockets. Either way, the fires came again and again, until even the Doge stopped pretending surprise. You pass another bucket. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Splash, hiss, shout, repeat. The cobbler himself stumbles out of the smoke, soot-streaked but alive, clutching a single boot like a relic. "My best pair," he gasps. You nod solemnly, unsure whether to congratulate or console him. Behind you, an elderly woman mutters prayers to Saint Florian, the patron of firefighters. Another swears that the flame began unnaturally, that she saw a flicker of green within it, witch fire from the lagoon. You've heard worse theories. Last month someone blamed a blaze on a cursed fresco of Saint Mark blinking at the wrong time. The truth is usually duller: an overturned oil lamp, a lazy apprentice, a drunk customer with a candle. Still, Venice has never resisted a good superstition. You step closer to the doorway, coughing as the smoke thickens. The heat kisses your face through your beard. Inside, the flames dance greedily along the shelves, devouring leather and glue. You spot the source, a fallen lantern, wick still burning fiercely in a pool of spilled oil. You grab your cudgel, smash the handle through the window, and signal for more water. When the last ember dies, the street is slick with mud and relief. The crowd begins to disperse, muttering comfort to one another as though they've just survived a storm. The cobbler sinks to his knees, staring at the ruin of his workshop. You rest a hand on his shoulder. "Could have been worse," you say gently. "At least the shoes didn't run away." He stares blankly, then lets out a hoarse laugh. "You joke even when my trade burns." "Of course," you reply. "If we don't laugh, Venice might drown just to spite us." You take down your ledger again, noting the incident, marking the house with chalk, a blackened X for repaired required, danger past. Around you, the puddles reflect the flicker of your lantern, each one a small captured sunrise. There's something oddly poetic about fire in Venice. It's the one element this waterlogged city cannot control. For all its mastery of tides and trade, fire remains a wild guest, always at the door, always waiting. You wander toward the canal, letting the damp breeze cool your face. Across the water, you glimpse other guards, their lanterns bobbing like fireflies. One raises a hand in salute. You return it, wordlessly sharing the old camaraderie of men who battle the inevitable. Later, as you cross the wooden bridge toward San Polo, you think about how many blazes have shaped this city. The Great Fire of 1514 that destroyed the Rialto, the one in 1577 that gutted the ducal palace, smaller ones that devoured artisans' shops, archives, and hopes. Yet each time, the Venetians rebuilt, stone over ash, memory over fear. Resilience, you mutter aloud, tasting the word like wine. Then, smirking, you add, or sheer stubbornness. From somewhere nearby, a child's voice pipes up, "Mr. Guard, is it over?" You turn to see a little boy clutching a wooden toy gondola, eyes wide with smoke and wonder. "For tonight," you say softly. "But the city likes to test us. Will it burn again?" "Someday. Everything does. But we'll be here to see it doesn't get the last laugh." He nods solemnly, as if accepting a sacred pact, and disappears into the arms of his mother. You resume your patrol. The streets glisten under the returning moonlight, and the faint smell of charred leather still clings to your coat. Somewhere behind you, the cobbler begins sweeping debris from his threshold, whistling softly, a tune you can't quite place. Venice exhales. The danger has passed. The air is still heavy with smoke, but underneath it runs something sweeter. Gratitude, fatigue, the unspoken pride of those who fought and won. You glance at your talisman, the sea glass charm catching the faintest glint from your lantern. It survived another night, and so did you. Historians like to write of Venice's art and music, of Titian's colors and Vivaldi's violins. But few remember the smell of wet ash or the sound of buckets slapping hands in the dark. Those, too, are part of the city's symphony, rougher notes, yes, but essential ones. You take a deep breath, letting the air settle in your lungs. Smoke, salt, and a hint of jasmine from some unseen courtyard garden. Venice at peace smells like contradiction. And as you turn back toward the labyrinth of alleys, you think, not for the first time, that perhaps this is what keeps you walking night after night. The quiet triumph of order over chaos, of flame over flood, of one tired watchman against the sleeping world. Your boots splash lightly in a puddle shaped like a heart. You grin, shake your head, and mutter to the city itself, "Don't try that sentimental nonsense on me." The city, predictably, doesn't answer. Only the ripple of the canal replies, soft, rhythmic, eternal. The rain comes just before midnight, soft and insistent, washing the city's grime into the canals like ink bleeding through parchment. You pull your cloak tighter and pause beneath the dripping balcony, the smell of wet limestone filling your lungs. The fire's excitement has ebbed, replaced by a quieter tension, the kind that hums through the narrow campielli when people think the night is watching back. You take a turn toward the square behind San Giacomo della Rio, a cozy courtyard during the day, but now a place of whispers. The puddles gleam faintly under your lantern, reflecting slices of shuttered windows and pale faces peering from behind curtains. You hear voices before you see them, low, hurried, carrying that dangerous blend of secrecy and conviction. You ease forward, the soles of your boots muted on the slick stone. A trio of men stands in the half-darkness beside a well, huddled beneath a dripping awning. One gestures sharply, another shushes him. You catch fragments, Senate, salt tax, delivery at dawn. You freeze. Venice is built on salt, its trade, its cuisine, even its currency once called salario. To tamper with the salt routes is to tamper with the Republic's veins. You lower your lantern slightly, letting its light fall just short of their faces. It's a delicate art, listening without being seen. That's something every night watchman learns quickly, or doesn't live long enough to. The men whisper again, and you catch a name. A name that shouldn't be said out loud, not outside the Doge's chambers. Your pulse quickens. The Council of 10 perhaps? Or the shadowy inquisitors of state? Historians still argue whether the night watchmen worked for these councils or merely under their gaze, but you've learned there's often no difference. You shift your weight, and the sound betrays you. One of the men stiffens, eyes flicking toward the darkness. You hold your breath. Just the rain, another mutters. You stay perfectly still until they finish their murmured plotting and melt away down a side alley, cloaks fluttering like startled bats. Only when their footsteps fade do you exhale. A lesser guard might chase them, but you've been around long enough to know better. You can't arrest whispers. You can only remember them. You step up to the well, still warm from their presence, and mark a small cross on the stone with your chalk, a signal to tomorrow's shift, suspicious meeting. Keep eyes open. The city doesn't need your heroics, it needs your memory. Venice thrives on information. Gondoliers gossip about senators, courtesans relay pillow secrets, merchants eavesdrop for advantage. Even beggars can sell a rumor if it's juicy enough. You, the watchman, are both participant and prey in this great carnival of surveillance. A gust of wind brushes past, sending ripples through the puddles. You glance up toward a shutter on the second floor, slightly open. A flicker of movement. Someone else was watching the watchers. You call softly, enjoying the show. No response, but the shutter creaks closed. You grin. In Venice, everyone's a spy, even the cats. You move on through the maze of alleys, the rain thinning to mist. The sound of distant footsteps follows you, though you're not sure if they're real or imagined. Sometimes, in this city, it's hard to tell where the echoes end and the ghosts begin. As you pass a small tavern, laughter spills into the street, drunken, carefree, loud enough to make the walls blush. Inside, a lute strums a bawdy tune about a doge and his mistress disguised as a nun. You peek through the door just long enough to see two of the men from earlier sitting by the hearth, acting as though salt conspiracies and folk songs are perfectly compatible evening pursuits. You linger a moment, wondering if you should enter, then decide against it. Politics are like fire, you can warm your hands, but get too close and you're ash. Instead, you circle around to the back alley, noting the rear exit. You trace a subtle mark near the drain pipe, another breadcrumb for the next watchman. Venice's security system isn't written in ledgers, it's scratched on walls, whispered under bridges, and passed hand to hand through the night. You're one of hundreds of unseen scribes keeping this fragile order alive. You pause by the canal, letting the cool wind dry your face. Across the water, the silhouette of the Doge's palace looms, a jagged crown of shadow and light. Somewhere inside, men in red robes deliberate over the fate of the Republic. They believe themselves unseen, protected by marble and secrecy. If only they knew that a damp, half-sleepless watchman like you just overheard their ghosts rehearsing revolts. You laugh softly. If I disappear tomorrow, you whisper to the water, at least I'll know why. The canal gives no answer, only a faint slap of waves against wood. A faint figure appears on the next bridge, a fellow watchman, carrying a lantern of slightly different shape. You recognize the limp. Johnny, you call. He turns, squinting through the drizzle. You're late for rounds. Got caught in the rain, you reply, which is both true and false. He joins you, sighing heavily. Any trouble? Only the usual kind, you say. The kind that pretends to be politics until it gets caught. Johnny grunts. Keep your nose out of the Doge's kitchen. They cook people there. You nod. The warning's unnecessary but appreciated. The two of you share a moment of wordless understanding before parting ways again. Two small flames moving through the night, each guarding the city from things it pretends not to see. As you walk on, you pass beneath a dripping arch where a fresco of St. Mark watches over you, eyes half eroded by time. You raise your lantern in a mock salute. Still keeping watch, eh? Me too. A drop of water lands squarely on your nose. You take it as divine acknowledgement. The bells of San Giacomo begin to toll, deep and resonant. You listen carefully, counting. 2 short, 1 long, a signal for the end of the hour. Somewhere, other guards are marking the same rhythm, keeping the invisible chain of vigilance unbroken. You smile at the thought, a brotherhood without faces, bound not by creed or rank, but by the simple act of not sleeping. The rain finally stops. The air smells of salt, smoke, and secrets. You adjust your cloak, lantern swaying like a tired sun, and resume your rounds. Behind you, the chalk mark glistens faintly under a flicker of light, like a heartbeat on stone, proof that the city remembers what you heard tonight. You can tell it's nearing 3 by the way the fog thickens, slowly, deliberately, like a living creature claiming its domain. The lantern light dims to a soft halo barely cutting through the milky air. You've reached the lagoon's edge, where Venice stops pretending to be a city and admits it's just a collection of brave dreams balanced on water. The night here feels different, emptier, older. The usual echo of footsteps fades, replaced by the gentle lap of waves and the occasional splash that sounds far too deliberate. You tighten your grip on the lantern. This is where smugglers like to test their luck, sneaking barrels of contraband salt, wine, and occasionally something far stranger. You crouch near a wooden post slick with algae. Faint drag marks score the mud, recent. You trace them with your finger and catch the faint scent of tar and something sweet, like resin. Smugglers, definitely. Or alchemists, depending on who's paying. You move along the narrow dock, boards groaning under your boots. The city behind you fades to whispers, distant bells, a snore through an open window, the clatter of a cat knocking something expensive over. Ahead, only mist. Who goes there? You call softly. Silence. Then a splash. Then another. You edge closer, peering into the fog, where shapes move, low, gliding, almost human but not quite. Your rational mind insists it's just gondolas. The older, more superstitious part of you, the part that still half believes the lagoon has moods, suggests otherwise. Historians still argue whether the Venetian night watchmen truly believed in the lagoon's spirits, but the records show an odd number of unexplained disappearances marked with a single word, nebbia, fog. Maybe bureaucratic shorthand. Maybe not. The splash comes again, closer now, and this time it's accompanied by a faint melody. A woman's voice, distant but distinct, humming something wordless. You freeze. The Sirene della Laguna, siren legends the sailors mutter about after too much wine. Voices that lure the lonely toward deep water. You've always dismissed it as superstition. Tonight, though, the fog doesn't give you that luxury. You grip your whistle but hesitate to blow. The sound could alert help, or provoke whatever's out there. You settle for muttering, if you're planning to drown me, at least hum in tune. A faint laugh ripples through the air. Then silence again. You exhale slowly and move on, more cautious now. The planks creak beneath your weight. Ahead, you spot a small barge half hidden beneath a fishing net. The tarp covering it shifts slightly in the breeze, or perhaps because someone's underneath. You lift the lantern. If you're a smuggler, you say, you're doing a poor job hiding. If you're a ghost, at least make it quick, I'm already behind on my rounds. The tarp stills. You step closer, grab a corner, and whip it back. Beneath lies not a ghost but a stack of barrels labeled with the Doge seal, wine shipments from Dalmatia, meant for the palace kitchens. You frown. Someone's been borrowing from royal supplies. As you note the markings, a sudden noise behind you, a splash followed by the thud of a boot. You spin around, lantern swinging wide, its light catching a cloaked figure scrambling into another skiff. You shout, stop, and leap forward, but your boot skids on the wet dock. You recover just in time to see the figure vanish into the fog, rowing furiously toward the open lagoon. You curse softly and throw your cudgel after him. It lands with a satisfying thunk against the side of the skiff, but the thief doesn't slow. You sigh, wipe the spray from your face, and make a mental note. Contraband, confirmed. Probably organized. Needs reporting. Johnny's words echo in your head. Keep your nose out of the Doge's kitchen. You glance back at the royal seal and mutter, too late. You secure the boat with its stolen goods and sit on the edge of the dock, feet dangling above the black water. The lagoon is calm again, deceptively so. A thin veil of mist curls around your boots. Somewhere, a fish breaks the surface with a soft plop. For a long moment, You let the city breathe around you. You think about how much of Venice's wealth, its glory, its art, its faith, has floated on waters filled with secrets. Officially, the Watchmen guard the peace. Unofficially, you guard the balance between order and hypocrisy. From the edge of your vision, something moves. You turn, nothing there. Then, a ripple spreads across the water as if something large just submerged. You lean forward, holding the lantern close to the surface. The light glows amber beneath the thin layer of mist, illuminating tiny shrimp darting away from your shadow. You tell yourself it's just a fish. You even half believe it. But when another wave slaps against the dock, just once, heavier than the wind could cause, you whisper, "I'm not paid enough for this." Some old night guards claimed the lagoon had moods, almost like a living being. It could be benevolent, hiding your mistakes under fog, or cruel, swallowing your footprints before anyone could find you. You've seen both sides. The air grows colder. Your breath ghosts in front of you. You're about to leave when you notice something glinting near a piling, a small, metallic charm caught in the reeds. You reach down, pluck it free. It's a coin, old and worn, bearing the image of a lion that predates the current mint. A sailor's talisman, perhaps. You pocket it, thinking it might join your growing collection of odd luck. You rise, stretch your aching legs, and turn back toward the city. The fog begins to lift, revealing the faint glow of lanterns in the distant alleys. Venice is stirring again, her quiet restored. Behind you, a single bubble rises from the black water and pops. You ignore it. That's how you survive here, by deciding, deliberately, not to notice too much. As you walk away, you think about those old stories the older guards used to tell, about drowned smugglers who still row invisible boats through the mist, searching for their lost cargo. You chuckle softly. "If you find my cudgel," you say to the empty air, "at least bring it back to my locker." The wind picks up, tugging at your cloak. The lantern flame dances, then steadies again, faithful as ever. You give it a nod. "Good work tonight," you tell it. "Try not to fall in love with the fog." It flickers, almost like it's laughing. You smile, feeling the edge of fatigue. Time to return inland, to the crooked maze of bridges and bells that still needs watching. As you walk, your boots squelch against damp stone, and behind you the lagoon lies quiet again, calm, patient, eternal. Whatever stirred beneath its surface tonight, it has gone back to sleep. For now. The bells of San Giacomo toll 4 times by the time you're back in the heart of the city. The streets are waking up, or perhaps they never truly sleep. The faint smell of baking bread drifts through a shuttered window, mingling with the brine of the canals. Somewhere, a gondolier coughs and curses at the early hour. You move through the narrow calle, your lantern lowered now, less to light your way than to reassure anyone peeking from the shadows that you are what you claim, a watchman, not a thief. Venice at night has 1,000 eyes but few witnesses. Your next checkpoint is the Calle dei Miracoli, named for the marble church at its end, though the locals joke it's the miracle if anyone makes it through without being pickpocketed. You pass a row of leaning houses whose wooden balconies sag over the street like weary eyebrows. Their plaster walls glimmer faintly under moonlight, tinted with salt stains and time. Halfway through the alley, you hear a muffled scuffle, a boot scraping stone, a whispered oath, then silence. You pause. Your pulse quickens, not from fear but from recognition. That's the sound of someone trying not to be heard. You press your back to the wall and ease the lantern's shutter closed until the light narrows to a thin golden blade. Slowly, you move toward the sound. Around the bend, the passage opens onto a small courtyard dominated by a dry well and an old fig tree. The leaves glint like coins in the dim light. 2 figures stand by the well, one tall, draped in a scholar's cloak, the other shorter, wiry, dressed like a dockhand. The dockhand is holding something, a roll of parchment, bound with ribbon. You can't hear the words, but you recognize the gestures, the nervous shifting, the glance over the shoulder. A trade. You take a silent step closer. The taller one speaks now, voice low but sharp. This is the last time. The council's already suspicious. The dockhand laughs softly. The council can't find its own shadow. Besides, you'll get your share. You catch only fragments. Seal, cipher, salt roots. Enough to make your stomach twist. Smuggling, again, but not just wine this time. Information. Maps of trade routes, perhaps. In Venice, secrets are worth more than silver. You could step out now, arrest them both, make a fine report. But there's a problem, the scholar's accent. It's local, educated Venetian. Someone with connections. Someone who would have friends on the council itself. The kind of man who can make evidence disappear before sunrise. You stay hidden. Listening. The dockhand finishes his handoff, takes a pouch in exchange, and melts into the shadows. The scholar remains a moment longer, checking the contents of the pouch by lantern light. Gold glints briefly between his fingers. Then he turns, and you finally see his face. You know him. Not well, but well enough. Messer Ulvise Contarini, clerk to one of the procurators of San Marco. You've seen him striding through the basilica in daylight, sanctimonious as a priest. He pauses at the edge of the courtyard, head tilted slightly, as if sensing your gaze. Then he slips away down the opposite alley, his boots barely making a sound. You exhale. The city feels suddenly smaller, the walls pressing closer. You've just witnessed something you were never meant to see. For a long minute you stand there, the fog curling around your boots again, thinking. Reporting him means drawing the council's eyes. Keeping quiet means letting corruption spread. Either way, the balance you keep every night tilts a little further. You sigh. The Doge's kitchen, the council's secrets, next I'll be guarding ghosts for real. You reopen your lantern and step into the courtyard. The fig leaves rustle softly overhead, a whisper like old parchment turning. You approach the well and glance down. The water glimmers faintly, reflecting your small circle of light. Something white drifts just below the surface, a scrap of paper. You fish it out with your cudgel, careful not to wet your sleeve. The ink has blurred, but one phrase remains legible. Porto di Chioggia, 3 nights hence. You fold it, tuck it inside your belt. Evidence, maybe. Or a death warrant, depending on who finds it first. As you prepare to leave, a voice drifts from the dark, a woman's this time, weary and amused. You'll catch your death, standing in fog that thick. You turn. A shadow detaches itself from the doorway opposite. It's the herbalist's wife, Lucietta, the one who sells fennel tea and gossip in equal measure. She steps forward, a shawl drawn tight against the damp. Signorina Lucietta, you say, bowing slightly. You're up late. Or early, she says, smiling. Depends how you count. Her eyes flick to the well, then back to you. You didn't see me, and I didn't see you. Agreed. You study her face. The kind of calm that comes from knowing too much. Agreed, you say. She nods once, then adds, if you value your sleep, burn whatever you just found. Paper attracts attention. Then she's gone, vanishing into the maze of alleys with the quiet assurance of someone who's survived this city longer than the stones themselves. You stand alone again, listening to the soft drip of water into the well. Her words hang in the air. Burn it. You look down at your belt, at the folded scrap. You think of Ulvise Contarini's smug face, of the barrels marked with the Doge seal, of the unseen hand weaving the city's darker traits together. You tuck the paper deeper into your coat. Not yet. Some truths deserve to be uncovered, even if only to prove that the fog doesn't own every secret. The bells ring again, marking another quarter hour. You start walking, lantern swinging at your side. The light paints shifting shapes along the walls, masks, faces, ghosts of carved angels and cracked frescoes. Venice watching itself sleep. You pass the bridge of San Zulian, where legend says a ghostly guard still patrols, carrying the keys to gates that no longer exist. You pause for a heartbeat, glance over the parapet at the canal below. The water is mirror still, reflecting your lantern like a second moon. You whisper, "If you're still out there, old friend, maybe keep watch with me a little longer." Then you continue your rounds, footsteps steady against the damp stone. The city exhales again, and for now, at least, it's quiet. You turn toward the Piazzetta, the night air thick with that silvery dampness that always seems to cling to the city's marble bones. It's almost 5 bells now. St. Mark's Square lies ahead, empty in the half-light, as though even the pigeons have decided sleep is the wiser option. Your boots echo softly under the arches of the Procurity. Every sound bounces and repeats here, like voices in confession. You lift your lantern, casting long shadows across the worn paving stones. The basilica looms before you, its domes black silhouettes against the paling sky, a sleeping giant encrusted with saints, mosaics, and seagull droppings. At this hour, St. Mark's is yours alone. You walk the perimeter, tracing your route by habit more than sight, left past the flagpoles, right by the lion pillar. The golden-winged lion itself gleams faintly above the column, a ghost in flight. You could almost swear it blinks. You pause beside the great doors of the basilica. The bronze is cold beneath your fingertips. You can feel the faint grooves of centuries of hands, pilgrims and thieves alike, pressing for luck or forgiveness. You murmur a small prayer out of habit, not to the saints, really, but to the city itself, the way one might placate a capricious sea. They say St. Mark's Square at midnight, or near enough, is haunted by 3 kinds of ghosts. The first, the desperate souls of gamblers who lost their fortunes at the Ridotto and threw themselves into the canal. The second, the condemned prisoners whose final steps crossed the square on the way to the Doge's justice. The third, pigeons. Eternal, insufferable, and impossible to banish. You chuckle quietly to yourself. Birds, bureaucracy, and bad debts, Venice in a nutshell. A movement catches your eye. Something shifts in the shadows near the campanile. You lift your lantern. Nothing but the flicker of light on old brick. Still, you feel watched. The campanile has stood since before your grandfather's grandfather. Even rebuilt after lightning took it down, it feels ancient, patient. It sees everything. You move closer, the cobblestones cold beneath your soles. The faint scent of candle wax drifts from somewhere, strange, since no candles should be burning here now. Then you notice it, a small offering left at the base of the bell tower. A sprig of rosemary tied with red thread, a wax medallion pressed with a saint's image, and a folded scrap of parchment weighted by a stone. Your instinct says to ignore it. But curiosity, your oldest flaw, wins again. You kneel and unfold the paper. Inside, written in a hurried hand, is a single phrase: "When the lion looks west, Venice weeps." You stare at it, frowning. Another riddle? A warning? Historians still argue whether such phrases were mere superstition or veiled codes used by secret societies, the scuole segrete, that operated beneath the Republic's glittering facade. Some claimed they served the Doge, others that they spied for rival powers. Most likely, they just liked feeling important in their masks and hoods. Still, the timing feels pointed. The merchant's ledger, The smuggling whisper, now this. The threads begin to weave themselves into a tapestry you're not sure you want to see. You tuck the paper away and continue toward the basilica steps. The mosaics above the doorway shimmer faintly even in this half-dark, the gold leaf catching what little light the lantern gives. There, among the saints and symbols, your eyes catch one strange detail, a lion carved into the frame of the rightmost arch. Its gaze is turned westward. Coincidence? You mutter, you're starting to sound like a street prophet. Still, a chill crawls across your neck. You step back and look at the square as a whole. In the center, the flagpoles sway gently in the wind, their cords rattling like bones. Beyond them, the lagoon gleams faintly in the distance. Somewhere out there lies the Porto di Chioggia, the name on the wet scrap of paper still hidden in your coat. Your rounds pull you onward. You circle the basilica, passing the small side door known as the Porta dei Fiori, carved with flowers, vines, and angels that look suspiciously like gossiping neighbors. The craftsmanship is exquisite, but the eyes, those eyes, always seem to follow you. You recall an old saying, St. Mark's is alive, she sees through marble and hears through gold. Some scholars say it refers to Venice's complex surveillance system, hundreds of spies, secret informants, and the infamous Bocchi di Leone, the stone lion mouths where citizens could drop anonymous accusations. Others insist it's just poetic exaggeration. Either way, you don't feel alone. You pass one of those lion mouths now, set into the wall of the Doge's palace. The stone muzzle grins at you, its mouth open to receive secrets. The inscription reads, Denunci secret contra chi occulta gratia et officii. Secret accusations against those who hide favors and offices. You reach into your coat, feel the folded scraps of paper, the smuggler's map and the cryptic warning. For a reckless heartbeat, you consider sliding one into the lion's mouth. Let the Republic choke on its own riddles. But you stop. No. Venice doesn't forgive easily. And you still need answers. As you turn away, a faint metallic clang breaks the silence. You freeze. It's coming from inside the basilica. Impossible, the doors are sealed at night. You cross quickly, heart thudding. At the base of the steps, you listen. The sound again, metal against metal. Then a low murmur, like chanting. You glance toward the lagoon, half expecting to see light in the windows of the Doge's palace, but it's all dark. The ritual, or whatever it is, seems private. Secret. You consider opening the side door, but it's locked, bolted from within. Instead, you press your ear to the wood. The chanting stops. Footsteps shuffle. Then silence. A hand touches your shoulder. You nearly drop the lantern. It's Marco, the youngest of the watchmen, cheeks still soft with youth. He looks at you with wide eyes. Captain said you're late on your report. You exhale, forcing a laugh. Tell the captain I was chatting with saints. Marco frowns, not catching the joke. Saints don't file paperwork. Neither do ghosts, you mutter. Together, you make one last sweep of the square. The sun edges higher now, tinting the domes pink and gold. The pigeons return in formation, like an invading army. As you watch them descend on the basilica steps, a thought lingers. Venice's heart may be gilded, but her veins run dark. And somewhere in those veins, something is stirring. The Doge's palace windows flare with the first touch of daylight. Inside, 100 clerks will soon wake, ready to draft decrees, count ducats, and pretend none of them dream at all. But you, with your damp coat and sleepless eyes, know better. You've heard what the marble whispers at midnight. You tip your lantern one last time toward the basilica and murmur, "Keep your secrets, old lion. I'm not done yet." The first light of dawn stains the lagoon a watery silver, but your rounds are not yet finished. The others, the younger watchmen, will soon head home to sleep or drink away their fatigue, but you linger. The city's not truly awake yet, and that's when its pulse is easiest to feel. You move away from St. Mark's and into the web of narrower alleys, where the smell shifts from salt and stone to something heavier, ale, sweat, and perfume. Venice may pray by day, but by night, it indulges. This district, known politely as La Fondamenta della Virtù Perduta, has long since dropped the pretense of virtue. You cross a tiny bridge, the kind so narrow you could spit across it, and your boots land on damp boards slick with something you hope is just spilled wine. A faint melody drifts from a tavern doorway, a lute missing a string, accompanied by laughter both human and not entirely sober. You knock with the handle of your cudgel, and the door creaks open just enough for a face to appear. Painted lips, dark kohl around half-lidded eyes. "Ah, the city's finest," she purrs. "Come to arrest the sinners, or join them." You grin, holding up your lantern. "Depends which pays better tonight." Her laughter spills out like perfume, and the door widens. Inside, the tavern glows with candlelight trapped in smoky air. A dozen patrons lounge on benches or lean across sticky tables, cups raised, secrets flowing easier than wine. You make a slow circuit, pretending to check for brawlers while your real attention scans for something else. Faces you've seen near the docks, coins stamped with foreign crests, the faint glint of a knife that shouldn't be there. The barkeep nods toward you, sliding a mug your way. "On the house, Sagente. Keeps the peace better than the cudgel." You take a sip. It tastes like regret and raisins. "Peace isn't the problem," you say. "It's the quiet." He chuckles. "Venice never quiets, friend. It just changes pitch." You lean on the counter. "Seen any new faces tonight? Someone asking about Chioggia." The barkeep hesitates, just for a heartbeat, but enough. "Chioggia," he repeats, too casually. "Only fishermen and fools go there." You smile. "Good thing I'm both." He shifts, wiping the counter harder than necessary. "Maybe ask the Contessa. She knows every secret not worth keeping." You thank him and head for the back room. The Contessa isn't a noble, not anymore, if she ever was. She's a legend in her own right, the unofficial mayor of this district. You find her where she always is, in the corner beneath the fresco of St. Lucy, whose painted eyes have long since peeled away. The Contessa is wrapped in crimson silk, her hair silver as sea foam, her voice low enough to make sailors kneel. She glances up as you approach. "Watchman," she says, not bothering to hide her amusement. "Did you come to pray or confess?" "Neither," you say. "I came to listen." "Listening is expensive," she murmurs. You drop a coin on the table. "So is silence." She studies you for a moment, then gestures for you to sit. "Chioggia," she says, before you can even ask. "That's a word I haven't heard in months. Until yesterday." You lean forward. "Go on." "A man came asking for safe passage," she says. "Scholar's hands, fisherman's courage. Said he carried messages for the council. Didn't trust the couriers." "Did he give a name?" "Ulvise," she says softly, watching your face. "You know him." You swallow hard. "He's the Doge's clerk." Her smile fades. "Then you didn't hear this from me." "Did he say what kind of messages?" She shakes her head. "Only that if the lion ever turns west, Venice will drown." The same words from the parchment at St. Mark's. You feel a cold thread of recognition coil through your gut. The Contessa notices. "You've heard it before," she says. "Once, you admit. Now twice too many." She leans closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Be careful, watchman. There are edicts written in daylight and orders whispered in candlelight. The ones in candlelight tend to bite harder. You stand, heart pounding, and thank her. As you turn to leave, she adds, "If you're going to Chioggia, don't go alone. And don't look back." Outside, dawn has deepened into a murky gold. Market stalls are beginning to open, their awnings creaking in the breeze. The city smells of wet rope, citrus peels, and yesterday's sins. You pass a group of apprentices sweeping the walkway, laughing too loudly for the hour. Their cheer almost feels foreign here, out of place among the tired stones and lingering smoke. You wonder if they even know that the city they sweep for coin is built on 1,000 invisible deals, half of them struck in the dark. As you walk, you recall one of the Republic's strangest decrees, an old ordinance from 1528 banning unnecessary merriment after midnight. Historians still argue whether it was about noise control or morality, though given Venice's reputation, the latter seems unlikely. Either way, the law didn't last long. Venice always found a loophole for pleasure. You make your way to the edge of the district, where the taverns thin and the silence grows thicker. The canal here is narrow and black, lined with shuttered warehouses. A stray cat darts across your path, pausing to hiss before vanishing into a gap between crates. You take a long breath. Somewhere out there, Ulvaeus Contarini is plotting something tied to Chioggia, and you've got nothing but riddles and half-truths. The council, the smuggling, the cryptic messages, it all loops back into itself like the canals, endless and confusing. You catch your reflection in the water, tired eyes, unshaven jaw, lantern light flickering like guilt. You grin weakly. You're too old for this, friend. Then a splash breaks your thoughts. You turn. Ripples spread across the canal's surface, and for a moment you swear you see something, someone, move beneath the water. A pale hand, maybe. Or just the trick of the light. You raise your lantern, scanning the water. Nothing. Only the soft lap of the tide against stone. Still, you feel that familiar shiver crawl up your spine. Venice is built on secrets, yes, but some are better left where they lie, beneath the surface, among the bones and barnacles. You sigh and start walking again, boots echoing against the planks. Behind you, the tavern doors open, laughter spilling out into the morning. Another night dies. Another mystery wakes. By the time you reach San Pantalon, the sky is the color of tarnished brass, neither dawn nor night, just that in-between hour when the city seems to hesitate before deciding who it wants to be today. You rub your eyes and wish for sleep, but there's one more task before the watch can rest. The bell of San Pantalon tolls twice, once for time, once for trouble. The sound cuts through the fog like a blade. You break into a trot, boots slapping against the stones, lantern swinging wildly in your hand. Bells don't lie. Bells mean fire, theft, or fools. Sometimes all three. You round the corner into the church square and stop dead. No fire. No smoke. Just a small crowd gathered around a trembling boy, his cap clutched to his chest. "What's this?" you call out. A baker's wife answers, flour still dusting her hair. He was shouting about a man with a knife, Signore, in the painter's workshop. You sigh and thank her, then push through the crowd. The workshop in question belongs to Messer Girolamo Loredan, an eccentric painter with more patrons than sense. His frescoes of saints and sinners alike earned him fame, and his temper earned him enemies. The door is ajar, a candle flickering within. You draw your cudgel, ease the door open, and step inside. The smell hits first, turpentine, smoke, and something sweetly metallic. Not blood, thankfully, just pigment. Red ochre, to be precise. You raise the lantern higher. The room is a chaos of canvases, palettes, and half-finished saints. Angels without wings. Madonnas without faces. A crucifixion where the sky burns in impossible shades of green. And there, slumped against the far wall, is Girolamo himself, alive, thank heaven, though breathing hard. His brush is still in hand, his shirt stained with paint, and beside him lies the knife in question, a sculptor's chisel. You lower your weapon. You've given half the parish a fright. He glares, still catching his breath. Thieves, he gasps. Came for my sketches. The Doge's portrait, gone. You scan the room. Easels overturned, drawers rifled through, sketches scattered like leaves after a storm. But no sign of forced entry. Who knew you were working on the Doge's likeness? Girolamo groans. Everyone who shouldn't. The Council of 10 demanded secrecy, but word always leaks. Gold leaks faster. You step closer, examining the window. The latch isn't broken, but the dust on the sill has been disturbed. You trace the mark with your finger. A small circular print, no wider than a coin, faint but clear. A signet ring impression. You've seen it before. The same swirling emblem embossed on the seal of the procurators, Ulvice Contarini's department. You feel your pulse rise. Did you recognize the intruder? Girolamo shakes his head. A mask. Silver. Like a carnival devil. Masks again. Always masks. You pace the room, mind spinning. Someone stole a portrait of the Doge, unfinished, maybe, but valuable. Not for its art, but for what it could expose. Venetian portraits are political instruments. The wrong detail, a hidden symbol, a skewed gesture, and a rival faction could claim mockery, treason, or worse. Did the Doge pose for it, you ask? Girolamo laughs bitterly. Of course not. He sends his likeness by courier. A wax bust, painted over. The real Doge never sits still long enough for any man to look him in the eye. You consider that. Then whoever stole the portrait has more than a painting, they have his face. The painter nods grimly. And faces can be forged. You crouch, scanning the floor for more clues. A few drops of wax, crimson, ritual candle wax, not from ordinary light. You pick one up, rolling it between your fingers. The scent is faint but familiar, clove and myrrh. Church wax, used in nocturnal masses. Historians still argue whether such late-night gatherings were acts of devotion or veiled political meetings. Either way, the same wax you found near St. Mark's last night. You stand and meet Girolamo's eyes. If I find your portrait, you'll stay quiet about this, understood? No panic, no proclamations. He hesitates, then nods. But why would the council's own man steal from me? You smirk tiredly. Because in Venice, loyalty's just another color on the palette. You step outside again, into the misty square. The crowd has dispersed. Only the baker's wife remains, handing the boy a roll for his bravery. You nod to her and move on, the bells echo still humming in your bones. You wander the alleys around San Pantalon, following the faint scent of smoke and clove. It leads you toward the canal, where an artist's barge drifts lazily against its mooring, curtains drawn tight. You listen, muffled voices inside, laughter, a clink of glass. You knock once. The curtain parts an inch, and a man's eye peers out. We're closed. Not to the watch, you say. The curtain opens reluctantly. Inside, half a dozen painters and apprentices lounge with their cups and brushes, their clothes stained every color imaginable. Evening, you say. Or morning. Who can tell? No one laughs. Good. You're tired of jokes tonight. You scan their faces. All local, all young, except one. A foreigner, maybe Flemish, judging by his coat. He sits apart, sketching absently on a scrap of paper. When he sees your uniform, his hand stills. You approach. What are you drawing? He hesitates. Just the square. You lean in. The sketch isn't of the square. It's of a man, balding, stern, wrapped in robes heavy with embroidery. The Doge. Only the eyes differ. In the sketch, they look westward. You exhale slowly. Where did you see him? The artist swallows. I didn't. A friend gave me the likeness. Said it was inspiration for a commission. A friend named Elvise, perhaps. He doesn't answer. Doesn't need to. You take the sketch, fold it carefully, and stand. If anyone else asks for the Doge's portrait, tell them the watch is now handling commissions. He nods, pale as marble. You leave the barge, the paper burning in your pocket like a confession. The morning bells begin again, calling the faithful to prayer, the weary to bed, and the curious to ruin. As you walk back toward the barracks, the canals mirror the rising sun. The Doge's westward gaze haunts you. If the lion looks west, Venice weeps. Maybe the saying isn't metaphor after all. Maybe it's a plan. You murmur to yourself, the lion's already turning. And this time, you're certain someone, or something, has noticed. By noon, the lagoon is a mirror of molten pewter, and Venice lies under its own weight, heavy with damp, rumor, and the unspoken knowledge that something within its golden heart is beginning to crack. You sit at the barracks table, the stolen sketch before you, its lines warped slightly from canal mist. Around you, the room smells of sweat, parchment, and boiled coffee, the fragrance of men who've seen too much night and too little truth. Captain Elvise Contarini isn't here yet, though his name is the one you've been rolling on your tongue all morning. When he finally enters, his steps are precise, polished as a blade. His robes of office whisper against the stone. You sent for me, he says, voice like cut glass. You nod, rising slowly. We had a disturbance near San Pantalon. A workshop broken into. The thief took a portrait of His Serenity, the Doge. Contarini's jaw tightens. The portrait is a matter of state. You'll leave that to us. I would, you reply, if the thief hadn't worn a silver mask and left your signet impression on the window. The silence that follows is long enough for a candle to gutter. At last, he exhales. You've grown bold, Watchman. Only careful, you say, lifting the folded sketch. And unlucky. I found this on a foreign artist's barge this morning. He said a friend gave it to him. You unfold the page, laying it flat between you. The Doge's likeness, eyes westward. Strange angle, don't you think? Contarini doesn't touch it. He merely studies it, his expression unreadable. That's not the Doge's face, he murmurs. Then whose? He leans closer. It's intended to be his. But the brow, the lips, they are wrong. The forger meant it as mockery. His voice lowers to a whisper. Do you know what such a thing would mean, if shown to the wrong counsel? You nod. A scandal. Maybe even sedition. He stares at the drawing again, then folds it sharply and pockets it. You've done your duty. Forget the rest. Sir, you begin, but he cuts you off. You think the city is a maze of canals and bridges, he says quietly. It isn't. It's a theater of masks, each with a dagger behind it. Some daggers are ceremonial. Others aren't. He turns to go. You stop him with a single question. Is it true the Doge is ill? That halts him mid-step. You hear too much, he mutters, not turning. Keep listening, and you'll drown. Then he leaves, door closing like the fall of a sentence. For a long while, you stand alone, the air thick with candle soot and silence. You know now that the theft wasn't about art at all. It was about power, an identity. You return to the drawer where evidence is kept. The stolen sketch may be gone, but one fragment remains, a smear of red pigment from Girolamo's floor, dried on a bit of linen. Venetian red, used only by those who could afford it. And there's something else in it. You lift the cloth closer to the light. Embedded in the pigment is a sliver of parchment, no larger than a fingernail. You ease it out carefully. On it, written in an elegant hand, are 3 words. Illinois Leone Volge. The lion turns. You feel your stomach tighten. That phrase again, the whisper you've been hearing for weeks from beggars, gondoliers, even the cloistered friars at San Zaccaria. The lion turns. No one seems to know what it means, but it carries the weight of prophecy. That evening, you cross the city to the northern district, toward a crumbling monastery known as Santa Fosca, the sort of place where silence has history. You've heard rumors of secret meetings there, monks, merchants, and nobles gathering after Vespers, praying not for salvation but for change. You find the gate ajar, the hinges sighing like tired lungs. Inside, the chapel glows with a dozen candles. The air smells of salt, dust, and candle smoke. A voice calls softly from the shadows. You shouldn't have come alone. You turn. A figure steps into the light, a woman in a scholar's robe, ink-stained fingers, hair braided tight. You recognize her at once. Dottoressa Fiora Morosini, archivist to the arsenal. You've crossed paths before, trading information like smugglers trade coins. You were expecting me, you ask. She smiles faintly. Not expecting, hoping. The Doge's council has silenced half my colleagues. They think we don't notice when the ledgers go missing, when names vanish from the archives. You glance around. This place is dangerous for both of us. Then let's speak quickly, she says, handing you a small roll of parchment. I found this in a shipment manifest from the arsenal, disguised among orders for ship timber. It bears the Doge's private cipher. You unroll it. Inside is a map of the Adriatic, dotted with red wax seals marking small islands, many long abandoned. One of them is circled twice, Sant'Andrea in Alga. A place of exile for disobedient monks centuries ago. Now nothing but ruins and seabirds. Fiora lowers her voice. Whatever they are planning, whatever the lion turns truly means, it begins there. You tuck the map away, pulse quickening. And if you're wrong, you ask. She gives a tired smile. Then I'll pray for the first time in years. Outside, the fog thickens. You part ways at the bridge, her silhouette swallowed by the mist. You stand for a long moment, watching the black water beneath, thinking of the Doge's painted eyes turned westward, of Contarini's polished calm, of a lion carved in stone above every gate. You murmur the words again, letting them taste bitter on your tongue. Illinois Leone Volge. If Venice is the lion, then the city's about to roar, or devour itself. You head toward the harbor, the map burning in your coat pocket, and the bells of Santa Fosca toll once for the hour, and once more, softer, like a warning no one else seems to hear. Dawn finds you already awake, sitting on a mooring post beside the quiet harbor. The water glows pink and pewter, rippling like old silk, and for a brief, deceitful moment Venice looks peaceful. The fishermen row past you in silence, their nets dark with dew. Somewhere, a dog barks, one of the dock strays that never truly belonged to anyone, much like you. Your orders are clear, though you've given them to yourself. Travel to Sant'Andrea in Alga. Find out what the lion turns means. Return before anyone realizes you've gone. Easier said than done. By mid-morning, you've bribed a gondolier to take you part of the way, promising him more ducats than you actually have. His name is Berto, and he has that dangerous cheer of someone who's survived too many bad ideas. Out to Sant'Andrea, he says, narrowing his eyes. No one goes there. They say the tide eats the stones. Stones don't eat, you answer, and he grins. Not unless they are Venetian. He rows you out past the arsenal, where the air smells of pine tar and hot iron, and the great galleys creak like slumbering beasts. Every stroke of the oar sends ripples through the reflection of San Pietro's bell tower, turning the world upside down. By the time you reach open water, the city behind you has faded into a shimmer of gold. Ahead lies only fog and the low hum of waves against wood. Berto pulls his cap low. We'll go no further than the shoals. The monks there were said to curse their island before dying, salt in their blood, sand in their prayers. Superstition, you mutter. He laughs. Everything's superstition until it kills you. When you reach the shoals, you wade the rest of the way through knee-deep water, your lantern wrapped in cloth to shield it from the wind. The island is little more than a cluster of broken stones and crooked cypress trees, their roots tangled in old foundations. Gulls circle overhead, shrieking like lost souls. You find the remains of a chapel Faust, roof collapsed, walls veined with ivy. Inside, amid the rubble, is a marble lion head half buried in sand. Its mouth is open, as if mid-roar, yet the sound that greets you is only the sigh of waves through cracks in the floor. Near the altar, something glints. You kneel and brush away the sand, a bronze token, smooth with age, stamped with the seal of the Council of Ten. The highest tribunal of Venice, the ones who rule in silence and shadow. Your pulse quickens. So the Doge's private council has been here. Recently. You light your lantern and move deeper into the ruin. Footprints, fresh ones, trail toward a staircase descending into what was once the monastery's crypt. Of course, you whisper, because nothing good ever happens above ground. The stairs lead to a vaulted chamber, cold and wet, its floor half flooded. And there, standing in a circle of lamplight, are 6 figures in dark robes, their masks shaped like lions. You freeze, hidden in the shadow. A voice echoes against the stone, measured, deliberate, unmistakably that of Captain Contarini. Brothers of the Lion, the Doge's strength wanes. The merchants whisper, the Senate grows restless. But the council endures. As it always has. A second voice, female, calm, familiar. Fiora Morosini. So you plan to replace him, she asks. That's treason, Ulvise. Contarini's reply is almost tender. No. It's renewal. Venice cannot survive on ceremony. The Republic needs guardians who act, not figureheads who pray. Another man steps forward, holding a scroll. When the bell of San Marco tolls thrice this coming feast day, we declare the lion has turned, our signal to take command of the arsenal and the mint. No one will resist once they see the banners. Historians still argue whether such councils truly plotted coups or merely rehearsed them in whispers, but the fear they sowed was very real. Your foot slips slightly against wet stone, a soft splash that echoes far too loud. 6 masked heads turn at once. Who's there? Contarini's voice snaps like a whip. You don't think, you run. Lantern swinging, you dash back up the stairs, breath tearing your lungs. A shout follows, then boots on stone. You burst into sunlight, stumbling over the rocks toward the waterline. Berto's gondola waits in the shallows, his eyes wide. What in God's name? Go! You shout, leaping aboard. Row! He obeys without another word. Behind you, figures appear on the crumbling wall, crossbows raised. Bolts hiss through the fog, one striking the prow. Keep low, you bark, grabbing an oar to help. The wind rises, waves slapping against the hull, and you can't help thinking. If this is how the lion turns, it's turning with teeth. By the time you reach the lagoon's edge, your arms ache, your hands blistered. Berto steers into a quiet canal near Murano, panting. "You owe me more than ducats," he mutters. "I'll owe you a story instead," you say. "If we live to tell it." You disembark, slipping into the maze of alleyways. You've lost your hat, your whistle, your sense of control. But you still have Fura's map and the image of 6 lion masks burned into your memory. Back in the city proper, dawn has given way to day. Merchants open shutters, priests ring bells, pigeons scatter across the square. Venice hums with its usual elegant deceit, oblivious to what almost erupted in its name. You pause at a bridge, watching the ripples below. The city's reflection trembles. Beautiful, fragile, upside down. Maybe that's what Venice truly is. A dream that only survives because no one looks too closely. You rub the salt from your eyes and start walking again, the weight of what you know pressing down heavier than any armor. You're not sure if you're a watchman anymore, or just one more ghost in the night this city keeps trying to forget. Still, you know one thing: if the lion truly turns, you'll be there to see it. Even if it roars you out of existence. The bells of San Marco toll twice before dawn, their echo rolling like thunder over the lagoon. The air smells of wet stone and seaweed, and the mist curls thick as wool between the columns of the piazza. You walk slower now, every step deliberate, every breath a quiet bargain with yourself. Just make it until sunrise. Venice never really sleeps, but tonight she feels restless, like a fevered dream that's about to wake. Gondolas creak in their moorings, dogs whine near shuttered bakeries, and you can feel the hum of something waiting. The lion turns, they said. And it feels like the whole city is holding its breath for that moment. You pass beneath an archway where frescoes have half flaked away, their angels eyeless, their halos faded. The stone beneath your fingers is slick with centuries of secrets. Historians still argue whether the Council of Ten ever truly ruled alone, or whether their power was a shared illusion. But illusions are what Venice does best. Down near the arsenal, soldiers gather. Quietly. No banners, no torches, just the faint clink of steel against stone. Their captain wears no insignia, but you recognize him anyway. Captain Contarini, stripped of ceremony. His polished voice, when he speaks, is almost human. "The Doge is gravely ill," he says, not to you but to his men. "Before dawn, he will sign the decree transferring his authority to us. Venice must endure." You step from the shadows. And if he doesn't? Every face turns toward you. The mist glows orange with torchlight now, painting halos on the water. Contarini's mouth twists. Then you, my watchful friend, will ensure that he does not resist. The world narrows to the space between you. "I swore to guard this city," you say quietly, "not carve it up." He sighs, drawing a dagger, its hilt chased with the lion of St. Mark. "Then you'll guard her in silence." He lunges, but Contarini, for all his cunning, underestimates how many nights you've spent walking these streets, how well you know their rhythm. You step aside, catching his wrist, twisting until the blade clatters into the water. The soldiers hesitate. No one moves. The fog thickens, swallowing sound, shape, and certainty alike. "Go home," you tell them. "The lion doesn't turn tonight." Some listen. Others scatter. Contarini stumbles back, clutching his wrist, his expression unreadable. "This city devours its own," he spits. "You can't save it." "Maybe not," you say, "but someone should try." He disappears into the mist, his footsteps fading. You stand there a while longer, lantern light trembling against the dark water. By the time you reach the Doge's palace, dawn is blooming pink over the lagoon. The guards at the gate look at you strangely, half respect, half confusion. No orders have come down. No decree has been signed. The Doge still lives. For now. You make your rounds one last time. Across the square, pigeons wheel and settle on St. Mark's shoulders. The cafes open shutters, sweeping away yesterday's dust. The canals, slick and silent, carry the reflection of a waking sky. Venice endures, as she always has, by pretending nothing ever changes. You pause on a small bridge where the water curls beneath, the ripples catching your lantern's glow. You think of Fiora, vanished into the archives, of Berto, probably spinning tales for coin, of Contarini, somewhere plotting again. You think of the night watchmen before you, those whose names are lost, whose lanterns once burned like tiny stars between the stones. You hang your lantern on the bridge post. Its flame wavers once, then steadies. For a moment, it looks like the city is breathing through you. You exhale, soft and slow. The watch may be forgotten, but the habit of vigilance remains, a heartbeat in the fog, a whisper in the silence, a reflection that refuses to fade. And so, when the bells toll a third time, you listen. Not for danger. Not for command. Just for the rhythm of the city itself. Steady, ancient, alive. Venice doesn't need saving, you realize. She only needs witnesses. And you have been one, all along. The water shimmers like glass as the sun finally rises. Your shadow stretches long over the stones, and somewhere behind you, the lantern goes out. It doesn't feel like an ending. Only a pause. You smile to yourself, and for the first time in a long while, you let your shoulders rest. The story slows now, like the tide retreating from the stones. The lanterns of Venice are dimming, their reflections fading one by one, until only the faintest glow remains beneath the arches. You lean against the bridge rail, letting the cool air brush your face. The city hums quietly, its heartbeat muffled beneath layers of water, brick, and time. It's strange, isn't it, how the loudest cities hold the softest ghosts. The night watchmen once marched these very streets, their boots tapping out the same rhythm you just walked. They left no statues, no songs, only the echo of duty in a place that thrives on forgetting. Yet somehow, in every corner where the light lingers a moment too long, you can almost see them. The sound of water replaces their voices. The scent of salt and wax replaces their presence. The air tastes like iron and memory. You could almost believe the lagoon itself remembers each name, murmuring them beneath the lapping tide. So you stand a little longer, listening to the faint whisper of history. You breathe with the city, slow and easy. The fear drains out of you, replaced by something gentler, gratitude, maybe, or quiet awe. Venice will keep her secrets. But you've walked her night and lived to tell the tale. Close your eyes now. The water's calm again. The lanterns sleep. The lion watches, but its roar has softened to a purr. Sweet dreams, watcher. You've done your rounds.